Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Cop to Corporate podcast. I am Sammy T, your podcast host. I am so excited to be here today with Amanda Bear, who has been a cop since 2010, but also works in the corporate world now as an insider threat investigator. So, Amanda, we are so excited to have you on the show to talk to you about your law enforcement career and how you've switched over to corporate. Thank you for being here.
No, thank you for having me. This is exciting.
Tell us about your law enforcement career.
Really love running and gunning and action, and yeah, so what better way to kind of get it my feet wet, right? So I decided to go local and kind of never really looked back, and here I am now though.
So what was the catalyst for you to go from being a full-time cop into working in the corporate world? And can you tell us what you're doing in the corporate world?
I was working as an investigator at one of the DA's offices in Georgia, and kind of had started branching out actually through LinkedIn. And I had got noticed quite a bit for some of my posts. And it so happened that it caught one of the individuals that I now actually do consulting with. Their attention. They had done a security vulnerability risk assessment for the courthouse that I was working at, and noticed my profile and reached out to me to set up a meeting, and kind of catapulted from there. And it was a good fit, and have learned a lot. So that is kind of what helped me transition. They brought me to one of the GSX Global Security Exchange conferences. It's one of the largest security conferences in the world, and asked me to come along and to see if I would even, enjoy the corporate setting, and really open my eyes to how vast the security field is. And there are so many different jobs out there that I had no idea of as a cop.
Yeah, and we've talked to a lot of people on this podcast from the corporate security world, but every single person has had a different thing to say, or they played a different role in corporate security. So it's really cool to learn about it. So what exactly do you do?
Yeah, so I work for one of the largest companies in the world, and so it's a little daunting, but I am an insider threat investigator. And so I still get to do investigations, which I love. So I was able to continue doing something, kind of within like the law enforcement field, because I was doing anti-corruption cases prior to. And that was something that was very near and dear to my heart. I know it's not for everybody, but I enjoyed it. And so got recruited and became, insider threat investigator. With that being said, a lot of people were like, well, what is an insider threat? And I'm like, well, you are an insider threat. Like, technically, like if you work for a company, it could be you. Like, do you know what you're doing within the corporation? So yeah, I mean, we technically, we do keep tabs, finger on the pulse, of the company, and make sure that everything is in order and nothing is being leaked. Or that's either maliciously or unintentional. People don't understand what they're doing within a company a lot of times because of the fact that, they do have access to specific things such as, confidential proprietary information.
I know we've talked a lot on this podcast too about how there are so many skills that do transfer, like risk management, crisis management, communication, conflict resolution, all that kind of thing. So do you think that from your experience, has all of that transferred well into the corporate world? And is there anything else that you wish that you had going into this?
Anybody has worked long enough in law enforcement and especially worked on the streets, you have a very vast amount of skill sets that you can transfer over to the corporate field. And I just don't think people think outside the box. They're like, well, I've only done X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, yeah, but think about it. You've had to be a counselor. You had to be, the person that has to be very meticulous in how you write a report. All of, you're the liaison between the attorneys and the law enforcement, and particularly maybe other departments, or state, federal, like, you are the glue that holds so many things together. And you also had the robot, like you were on the SWAT team, and you're the one that got, certified in order to, fly the drone. Yeah, I didn't do that clearly. So you have to get, FAA approved. And so it's like but that's a robotic. And guess what is happening within the corporate field? Like we're bringing robotics into these, settings. And so there's so many different skill sets that you have that you can offer. It's just how do you word it? And I don't think that cops understand how to word it. It's just there's so many things that you can offer. I think that case management. It's just so many things that you don't even have to be in an investigative role or even physical security. Recruiting, you're great at talking to people. Why would you not? If you have the gifts of gab and you can smooth talk a criminal into your back seat, why would you not go into recruiting? It's just so many things that I think people don't think outside the box. So
I love that you think about outside the box, and I love the examples that you gave too, because they were very specific. And I think that we think a lot about like, oh, report writing. Okay, I'm good at writing, or like communication. I can talk to people on the street. But you giving the example of like flying the drone and how the robotics could apply to a different company, like that's really great. And another thing that you mentioned was education and credentials. And earlier you said that there are things I wish I had known 10 years ago, or things that I wish that I had implemented into my career, my repertoire before. What would you suggest for people that are in that pivotal moment now? Like, I think I want to leave. I don't know yet. Like, what should they start doing?
There's definitely different organizations such as like ASIS or ATAP, InfraGard. I think a lot of like federal agents kind of understand more of the InfraGard stuff, but those are organizations that I wish I had known about in my law enforcement career, because I was the person that I would write goals on my mirror in the bathroom. And so every morning when I would wake up, I would see, okay, this is my goal. This is like the timeline. I need to complete it by this. And it was typically, hey, I want to do SWAT. I want to get my certification for teaching, defense tactics, firearms, whatever it may be. And, you mark it off as you go. And those are all great certifications. I'm still training recruits and I love it. But at the same time, when potentially your career, comes to an end, either that's retirement or maybe you get hurt on the job and, you're not allowed to go back to, your duty, you have to have a backup plan. And I'm very, very big on having backup plans. And you always have to have a plan A, plan B, and potentially a plan C, I wish I had known about these organizations and the certifications that go hand in hand with them, because nowadays, unfortunately, it's not like, hey, okay, you got your bachelor's degree, great, awesome, and we will teach you on the job, skills, and that's going to be, applicable throughout, all these different organizations, corporations that you're going to, potentially try to get a job on with. They want certifications. They want to say, oh, you completed the cybersecurity training. Oh, you completed your PCI, which is one of the ASIS certifications, and it's known internationally. And it kind of gives you a leg to have some of these certifications in the corporate field. And I wish I had known about it 10 years ago, not because necessarily of having the certification, like, and leaving law enforcement, like that wouldn't have been like my goal necessarily. But the fact is the networking is amazing within these organizations. I was on the board for ASIS for Atlanta, and I was the treasurer, and had made so many amazing connections. I was just on our board for the Business Continuity Summit and met some amazing people. But what it helped me and is helping me do is build those connections. But now I'm the chair over the Law Enforcement Appreciation event that's going to be coming up next year. So obviously it's very near and dear to my heart. But now I have the connections that there's a lot of like people that are fairly high up in the law enforcement, state government, even federal application there. And they want to be a part of it now. Like they're asking to speak at this event. And I'm like, wow, like that's amazing. It brings in UPS wants to be part of it, Home Depot, like all these big corporations that also want to help sponsor it. But then we have, the network. It's just growing and bigger by the moment. And it's really neat to get that interaction. And honestly, just the people that you meet and the stories that you hear, and you never know who you can learn from, right? When I go back to the certifications, like right now I'm studying for the PSP. So it's one of the ASIS organizations, like their certifications, and it's physical security. And when I'm reading through it, I'm going, oh, I wish I had known about different types of lighting when I'm working a certain type of case. When I've worked numerous homicides, and obviously you go out there, you take pictures, you try to emulate the exact, setting, date, time, maybe even, season might not be, but when we would go out there and take pictures of these, scenes, and it's like, oh, like the lighting could have affected, hey, this witness said it was a red jacket, green hat, but it was because there was a reflection and so it's inaccurate. There's just so many examples I could give. That's just, one of many, but I wish I had known it because it would have bolstered what I did even within law enforcement.
You talked about how LinkedIn got you the job that you have now. And
Yeah.
I always preach about how LinkedIn and networking is probably
Yeah.
one of the best things that you could do to figure out not just what to do next, but what you love to do and who's
Yeah.
the right person to talk to. And so it's so cool that your story is a success story from that. And so, do you have any other tips for cops that are considering leaving or have left and don't know what?
Obviously, I'm a big advocate of LinkedIn. I put myself out there. I was getting certifications as a firearms instructor. And obviously, as a female, like that's a little bit more unheard of. So I know that I probably got noticed a little bit more so. But I was just so excited about just the stuff that was going on in my life. And if I could help somebody else, and I think that being genuine really came across to a few individuals that said, hey, like she's passionate about these things. Like she wants to learn. My mom's a school teacher. And so she ingrained that in myself of, you're continuously learning. And I think that trying to have that and put that out there, that somebody is going to want to take you under their wing and mentor you, and you see somebody that you're like, oh, how do I go about like doing what they're doing? Or and how do I start? Like, I mean, it's baby steps. I'm still in my infancy in everything, I'm still learning.
Yeah, and I
But
think that your LinkedIn is a great follow for people that are struggling with that. And I try to do that myself too, because you and I both know how hard it is to go into the corporate world, and we want to help other people do that. So
yep.
even if you're just following someone's LinkedIn page, like everyone should check out Amanda's because she has a lot of very insightful posts. And I appreciate your vulnerability in what you share, because it's not easy to share to the world how you're feeling and what you're going through. So I respect that a lot.
I'm grateful for where
Yeah.
I'm at. I'm grateful for the people that have helped me. And I think that, LinkedIn is a great platform. And I think that so many people, if they pay attention enough, like they'll kind of find their niche and see, what else is out there. I know that you just got to start. You just have to start.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your insight. I really hope that this helps a lot of people. I think you're going to get a lot more follows and definitely people reaching out, because everything you post is really great for people that are considering a change. So, Amanda, thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.